Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Bower.
And I'm Joey Marino. Welcome to Actor Chats with Troy Evans.
This week we have the second part with Troy Evans.
You probably know him from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective and over 100 episodes of ER, and he played many cops.
This episode, Troy talks about his first LA agent, as well as guest starring on LA Law, and also the difference between acting for film and television versus theater.
So here is Actor Chats with Troy Evans.
But I'll tell you another story about the way things work that's surprising. I went along. I got signed with an agent named Dick Lovell, who was known in the business as Nickel Dick Lovell, and he was about the only agent in town who took young character actors. And he went to the theater. He went to the theater all the time, and that's how I signed with him. Was doing waiver plays in L.A. And finally, I was in a play with somebody else who was Dick's agent, and he came, and then I went in and talked to him, and he took me. But he never had a client ever make over scale plus 10. That was, and in those days it was actually wonderful. Had and he had a little office on Highland near Fountain, anywhere near as big as this room. Blank wall across from him, and he had pictures of all his clients on the wall. And a lot of casting directors would call him up and say, Dick, I need cop number 2 for Days of Our Lives tomorrow. 2 lines, works one day. And he'd look, okay, and then he'd call me up, Troy, yeah, you're on Days of Our Lives tomorrow. Don't chew gum. I'll tell you, a great one.
Old school advice.
Yeah, and he called me one time, said, oh, yeah, they called from the Love Boat. They wanted you to play a part of a romantic part on that show, but I told him you couldn't do it because that front tooth is missing. I said, Dick, I'm not missing a front tooth. Oh, you're not? I thought you were.
The switch, the technique switch, because you'd established a stage career and kind of out there.
Oh yes,
and
then there was actually a real gear change that I did several years of this, and it was here's another little story about Dick. My friend Will Ute, who's another character actor, you'd know him right away if you saw him, and he set up a meeting with Dick, and Dick said, Will, what's on your mind? He said, Dick, the thing I would like you to understand is that I would like to be successful enough in this business that I make you a millionaire. And Dick said, Will, I don't need the money. So I went along, and I'd work a little, and then I'd go out of town and do a play. And one of the things I did was do you know Arthur Miller's play All My Sons?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I went to Santa Maria, and I played Joe Keller, who's the patriarch in that, who kills himself in the end of that play. And it was a very, very good production, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh, really? Wow.
But it got virtually no attention. Was just sort of overlooked in their season. It was quite painful. And then 3 years later, Dick Lovell gets a call. And he was this sort of thing would put him on tilt a little bit. They wanted me to read for a guest star on LA Law.
Oh.
And the part was a plumber who had completely screwed up this job in a health spa, so that when they had the grand opening of the health spa, the toilets were flushing into the jacuzzis, and it was just disaster. So they were suing him, and he went to court. And Abby, who was Michelle Green, and real slight built little lovely woman who was a lawyer on that show.
Right.
When we lost the case, it looked like the comic relief. They always had a comic relief
Yes.
case in it. And when we lost the case, I tried to kill her, and she ended up killing me in her office. I was trying to beat her to death with a length of pipe, battered down the door to her office, and went after her, and she had a gun in her purse and killed me. I ended up, and I mean, it was a full-blown
hell of a comic relief.
Yes, and it was fantastic because you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
You don't, and I can remember when I was so excited. I'd never auditioned for a guest starring role, and I got the audition, and I got the part, and I did the part, and I can remember all my friends asking, "Well, do you think it will recur?" And I would say, I don't think so.
Yeah, you're sharp friends.
Well, I didn't tell them.
You didn't tell them the outcome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so. So, but on the set, I met the writer, Michelle Gallery, and went to her and said, "Boy, thank you so much. This is such a wonderful part. I've never had a chance to do anything like this on television before, and I really appreciate it." She said, "Oh, well, I'm glad you liked it. I wrote that for you."
What?
And I said, how could you have written it for me? Well, 3 years before, she was on vacation in San Ynez and went to the theater and saw All My Sons and got this idea for this guy who seems like a jovial, all-American guy, and in fact is willing to kill over money. And she not only carried that idea, but she remembered me and got me that part. And then, if it hadn't been for that, I never would have been on ER or China Beach or any of those things.
Oh, so it was her.
It was her who saw that show and wrote that part.
What's the lesson there? Is just keep working and working.
Well, yeah, and you never know. You do stuff and you think. Well, I've told you two of those stories today. I mean, one of them paid off 30 years later.
Yeah. Exactly.
And this one, 3 years after the fact, there.
And did she end up working on China Beach? That was your next big break, though. Break, China Beach.
Yeah, and that actually came about just through the theater. I was doing a play at the Arizona Theater Company, and John Wells' first wife, Belinda Wells,
the executive producer of ER.
Yep, was in that play, and he came to see that play, and they came to see my one-man show, Troy Evans' Montana Tales and Other Badass Business, and then wrote me a little part on China Beach, a sergeant. In fact, it wasn't even really scripted. It was where Dana Delaney and Marg Helgenberger are going back to the States for something, and
I'm sexy,
and I'm like yes, they are.
I'm just imagining working on that.
They're so great. They're so great. We just had the 25th anniversary of China Beach. And now Marg Helgenberger is a very nice person. And Dana Delaney is so nice that it takes you about a year to trust her, because you think, well, okay, when's the other foot going to fall? And now to see her after 25 years, she's been a big star for 25 years, and she's still like a kid from Iowa who just got off the bus. She's so nice and so generous. I can't say enough about her.
So how did ER come about? Did you have to read for that?
No. ER came about because I was in the pilot. I was Noah Wiley's first patient, and that was because So let's back up. So I did the one day on China Beach where I was a sergeant. That's okay, but I was playing a sergeant who was abusing them when they came back to the States, verbally abusing them, and all just sort of ad-libbed, kind of Arlie Ermy kind of stuff, screaming military crap at these two.
Improvised.
Yeah, and so then they had me back on China Beach a couple of times, and then the second year they made me a series regular, and then the third year we got canceled. So I thought I caught the brass ring, and that was.
There's a lot of awards for that.
Yeah. Oh, it was a wonderful show. So then I was starting to do pretty well. That was kind of the early '90s. I was doing a lot of movies and a lot of TV guest stars, and John Wells called and asked if I would do a small part in the pilot for him as a favor, which of course I would. He got me as a series regular on China Beach. I was Noah Wiley's first patient, a cop who'd shot himself in the leg. Now, on a lot of shows, it used to be you could be on it one year, you'd be a cop, and the next year you're on it as a bartender, and the next year you're, Tony's uncle, But on ER, they had a strict rule. You could only be on there as one person. So after 6 years, I do the pilot, where I'm Noah's patient. Then 6 years later, Abe Ben Ruby was in a financial dispute with him, and he left, and they called me up about 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night.
Casting director on ER?
John Levy.
John Levy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so my agents called me about 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. They wonder if you want to be the desk clerk on ER. I said, well, I'd have to think about it. Hell yes. So then I did 129 episodes of ER.
And I saw every one of your performances, and it was an honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we shared a donut or two.
Yes. Free donuts. By the way, I was quite amazed. I was on, I don't know if you know this show, Sullivan and Son, that I just did. And it's a 3-camera show, and it's for, I don't even know, I think it's on TBS.
Yeah.
And they had better craft service than ER. It was the best craft service I have ever seen. It was unbelievable.
It really makes your day.
Yes. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's one of those things. If I was a regular on that show, I'd weigh 400 pounds, because I can only walk away so many times.
It's great.
Well,
and you know what? When you're working on those shows, you really do kind of forget that, wow, this is kind of part of my salary, because you save so much money.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, literally, I remember when we were working on there, I mean, literally, you go home and your refrigerator's empty if you're a bachelor like that.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example on, that's a live audience show. And the night we're shooting with the live audience, I went to the craft service guys and told them, I said, I'll be out of here, in a couple hours. Before I went, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate the great job you do. And when I got ready to leave, they came over and gave me a big plastic bag, and I took it home, and it was full of tri-tip and lamb chops.
Wow.
But when you were working on ER, you would give me things about how to find your mark or position yourself. So how did these things develop over the years where you found these things, and was there a specific moment when you say, this is the difference between stage, or now I know what it is, or how did that happen? Or was it just time?
Just time, mostly. And plus, most of it is fairly obvious. That when you're on.
Tell me the obvious, because I'm eluded by.
Well, when you're on the ER set, you don't have to speak like this. They have microphones.
Right.
Pick you up, and then the stuff like the tip I gave you of just using the geography of the set. I just have a practical mind, so that just made great sense to me, that if you're blocking a scene on ER, rather than trying to look at a mark on the floor, when you find a place next to a counter or next to a chair or next to a gurney or where you stand there and put your hand on the corner of that counter, and you're in the right place, and you don't have to look around for that mark.
It's kind of kinesthetic, like.
Yeah. That's just common sense.
But I noticed one thing that, some people seem to, like stage actors sometimes seem to be, I don't know, all over the place in the room, kind of playing out a little bit. And I noticed, boom, you would find that guy's eye and bam, you would give it to him. Was there something about that you did different on stage? Because you would seem to really you would connect with somebody like, here I am. And they were forced to deal with you. did that change, or was it that's something?
Oh,
There's the camera with an over to you, and man, you're like, bam.
Well, that kind of goes. I mean, that's to me the most basic rule of acting. That people think that acting is projecting what you have to communicate, but the most important aspect of acting is listening. That's the and I think it was Ernest Borgnine who said, if you ain't listening, ain't nobody listening.
That's great.
And it's the easiest thing to do, and it keeps you in the scene, and then what you're doing makes sense. Do you know who Lila Brancato is?
No.
Oh, he's got. Do you know the Bronx Tale?
Mm-hmm.
He's the kid who plays De Niro's son in Bronx Tale, and they found him on the beach in New York, and he was just this punk kid, and he was doing De Niro impressions. So they brought him in, tested him, and they became kind of a movie star. I mean, it's pretty tragic. He's in
prison.
Yeah, he's in prison. He killed a cop.
I know.
Where a couple were trying to steal some prescription drugs out of he was in a bar, and he heard a guy talking about somebody who had died in his apartment building. He and another guy went and broke in the building to see if the guy had prescription drugs in his apartment, and then off-duty cops saw him, and they killed him. But my experience with him was I was cast in a super low-budget movie called Sticks that was like every trashy drug smuggling movie you've ever made, except it was about cigars, Cuban cigars. Guys smuggling Cuban cigars in the country for money. And so I'm supposed to start work on a Saturday, and I wait up till about 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday night. I don't have any phone numbers for anybody, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting for them to give me my call. And I finally go to bed, but it's terrible. Then I don't sleep because I don't believe in being late. Finally, about 7 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and I said, hello. And he said, hello, looking for Troy Evans. This is Troy Evans. Yeah, this is Don Smith. I'm the second AD on Sticks, and you're supposed to be on the set. I said, oh, yeah. Sometimes when people want me to be on the set, they call me up the night before and tell me what time to be there. Sometimes they even tell me where the fucking set is. Now I thought about getting up this morning about 4 and just driving around LA seeing if I could spot you, but I was just too fucking lazy. He said, didn't I call you last night? I said, you know fucking good and well you didn't call me last night. Don't call me up and give me this bullshit. He said, okay, well, can you get here? I said, yeah, I can get there. But I'm really upset because once there are all those people on that set.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the circumstance
then you're looking
is.
bad.
I'm the fucking late guy.
Yeah.
And I get to the set, and I'm wearing my own clothes. They wouldn't even let me park my car. They take the car and they just send me in. And the scene was the first scene. It was kind of a Ben Johnson-y kind of scene where Lila Brancato is this young punk, and I've caught it, and I'm a cop, and he's been caught shoplifting or something. And I'm giving him this lecture. So I get in, and I told the director, I'm very sorry I'm late, but they didn't give me a call. They didn't give me an address. They gave me nothing. It's okay. Let's just rehearse. So I start in, and I'm doing the speech, and it's like about half a page speech. About halfway through my speech, he's leaning around, looking behind me, and I'm still talking, and he says to the director, hey, could you get this guy to talk a little faster? Because when he's talking, I don't have a fucking thing to do but just stand here.
Oh, my God.
And I said, I said, I am really, really sorry about that, Lila. I said, that's my fault. And I think I can fix that. I'm going to kick your fucking ass, and that will give you something to do for the rest of the fucking day.
Oh my God! Did he get it?
And he said, Jesus Christ, this guy's crazy. I said, that's correct. And if you remember that, we will get along. And the director says, okay, let's go again. Let's try to keep that energy. That may be my favorite moment ever on a set.
When you were talking about the pilot for ER, what was your first impression of Noah Wyle?
Oh,
Because he was new, right?
Oh yeah, he was totally new. Do you know that? And I don't know the exact number of episodes, but when ER got picked up, Noah was working as a bellhop in some, I forget the name of it, a real exclusive hotel over in West Hollywood. It's one of those hotels that people like us don't know about.
Right. I don't even know.
Yeah.
And he kept that job, I've been told, for like 6 or 8 episodes because he just wasn't sure. As opposed to these guys, I've known dozens of them. They get a pilot and go out and buy a Mercedes,
Right.
Buy a condo in Westwood and a Mercedes, and then the pilot doesn't get picked up, and they're, fuck, I'm $1 million in debt. Well, yeah, not Noah.
Yeah. Noah just got married.
Yeah, I got
just got
got a report from the great
cool.
Brick Tilly.
Oh, yes.
Great detail.
Yes.
Yeah, very. So, but yeah, he was just the same. He was young. He was very, very nice and very
The
nervous.
opposite of the other guy you work with.
Yes, he was no Leela Brancata fan. Oh man.
What do you do like the day or weeks before you shoot? What do you do for prep work at this point? Like what is your process, I guess?
I don't do theater anymore.
Right.
So that's to me a much more strenuous preparation where you have to really think through and prepare a character. But in television or in film, they're going to hire me to be a lumpy-faced white guy who's a sheriff or a bartender or a cab driver or somebody's grandfather or an ex-cop, all those things. And it goes to the core of what I think about acting, that any person, any human, is capable at any given moment of doing anything. You just might do anything. Like you're probably not going to jump up and stab me in the eye with an ice pick, but you could. That possibility is in there.
Yeah.
And so, as an actor, particularly in film, my job is to look at that character and see the aspects of that character that are closest to the way I am, and then amplify those parts of my character and find the parts that are the least like me and diminish those. Because really, people misunderstand this, but because they think it's not acting. But my job is really to be me, in the best way that fits this particular part. And the example I'll give you is this: John Wayne. And for 25 years as an actor, I had utter disdain for John Wayne. For that reason, I thought, this guy isn't even acting. He's just, he's just going up there. He's making all his money for being John Wayne. Well, with a few years and a little experience, I realized that guy on the screen is not John Wayne. That and the level to which he succeeded is so, that he was skilled to the point that a person like me, who was a professional actor for decades, still believed that he wasn't doing anything. I mean, that's an extraordinary level of skill that he sold me that there was no facade going on, that was him. I mean, that's really a gigantic skill. And so I really take that as a compliment. People say, well, it looked like you weren't doing anything. Well, there's the, who's the other great not Jimmy Stewart, Gary Cooper. Some interviewer said to Gary Cooper, a lot of people, say that you're not even really an actor. You're just up there being Gary Cooper. He said, well, if you think it's easy to be Gary Cooper, why don't you do it? I've talked to other actors about this. People, probably the phrase that pisses me off the most is when people say, yeah, how do you get in on that? Like, it's not something that you do. It's something that you... And people say, well, yeah, could you get me, on ER? People who aren't actors.
Yeah.
And, Joe, you can really... I mean, imagine that. You take some guy who's, works in a grocery store or my auto mechanic or some guy and get him a part on ER. What the fuck is he going to do?
Oh, man.
They turn the light on and suddenly there are 50 extras scurrying around and the director's screaming and you go in there and they're supposed to spew out 15 seconds of medical gibberish, perfect on the spot, and move over and do this and do a piece of it. Zero possibility that they can do it. But they think it's nothing.
Right.
So that was the conclusion of the second part of our interview with Troy Evans.
That was great. Looking forward to more.
Yeah. Third episode's great. Troy's going to talk about his acting heroes, his days on ER, and also give advice to young actors out there.
This has been Actor Chats with Troy Evans.